Okay, so AP European history, there's so much to know, so much you gotta remember. It seems like so little time. Today we'll be focusing on the 30th chapter, which is the very last chapter. This is where the Cold War ends and terrorism becomes a very real and scary threat around the world, and the European Union and a whole bunch of other stuff with Russia and Soviet Union. Okay, so we do have to remember that Europe is deeply divided from the Eastern and the Western, the Western being allies with the US and prospering, while the East was still tied to the Soviet Union. And after a series of upheavals and revolutionary actions in Eastern European satellite states in the late 1980s to early 1990s, there was actually new hopes emerging from Europeans. And these upheavals dramatically altered the European landscape. Now, Mikhail Gorbachev is one of the prominent dudes you need to know. He was a part of a small group of reformers who noted the Soviet Union was struggling. Okay, so even though the Soviet Union was excelling greatly in space exploration, there was obvious issues in their economy due to the centralized, very rigid government that was in place. They had fell way behind the West in production, and the standards of living plummeted. So Gorbachev, as party secretary, he realized that he needed to fix these, and he issued reforms such as perestroika, which called for the complete restructuring of the market economy, and he wanted the market economy plus private enterprise. So he did that, and he also realized then that he should also fix the political and social issues because he figured out that they were tied. A part of perestroika was this very prominent part called glasnost, calling for Soviet Union's officials and citizens to be open and honest about their thoughts on the strength of their country and the Union. So this really kind of opened the door to seeing how the factories were doing, and they found that there was sloppy factory work, government policy protests, and bad working conditions. This also benefited the arts by allowing previously banned works in music, including styles of jazz and rock, to be played freely on the streets. Now, the political reforms that Gorbachev put in place were equally as revolutionary. He called for a new Soviet parliament entitled the Congress of People's Deputies, and he also decided to make the title president under the Soviet Union, which he became the first. The Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, however, caused a great deal of issues with Gorbachev due to extremely multi-ethnic characteristics. With 92 nationalities and 112 languages recognized, that causes a lot of tension. Now, G-Man accidentally increased these ethnic tensions, and they became more relevant again due to his loosening the iron grip of the Communist Party and his glasnost policies. Now, national movements in the republics that made up the Soviet Union also occurred in the late 80s, most being motivated by ethnic concerns. Now, these movements called for independence from Moscow, where the Communist Party and Russian rule was centered, and the most successful republic was Lithuania, who proclaimed an independent state in March of 1990. Gorbachev also struggles with these movements, and Lithuania becoming independent and other problems caused by his reforms. So he fought to keep other republics a part of the Soviet Union, but was torn between pleasing conservatives, who complained about growing disorder, and the liberals, who wanted a decentralized Soviet Union and federation. Okay, Gorbachev did resign in 1991, handing over the powers to Boris Yeltsin after Ukraine became independent, and they, along with Russia and Belarus, claimed the Soviet Union ceased to exist. Yeltsin began a new era, which sounds good and rejuvenating, but it started off on the wrong foot. A new power struggle emerged in Russia, the largest one by far of the Soviet republics. He pushed hard for a free market economy, ASAP, and which, as you probably guessed, did not happen. There were increasing numbers of organized crime, social disarray, economic hardships caused both sides Russians, one side being the supporter of forming communists, and the others being strong nationalists, to limit Yeltsin's power. Yeltsin pretty much ignored this and pushed to establish a new Russian constitution that would abolish the Congress of People's Deputies, and its place would be a two-chamber parliamentary body with a stronger president. This was, of course, rejected, but Yeltsin got very pouty and ordered military to storm the parliament to ensure he got his way, and so he remained with power in the upcoming elections. So during the rest of his reign, Yeltsin continued pushing for reforms that led Russia toward a pluralistic political system and a market economy. But the brand new post-communism Russia, there was increasing economic inequality due to faults in policy, leading to the confidence in Russians to decline. So Russian citizens, they were absolutely shook. They couldn't help that Yeltsin won the re-election, even though he had some serious health concerns. So these Russians were somewhat calmed, though, after Yeltsin resigned suddenly in 1999, handing the power over to Vladimir Putin, who was a former KGB member. But Putin put the citizens at ease with his goal of re-strengthening the central government in Moscow, which was approved by the parliament. He also promised to get Chechnya, a state who separated after costly war, to return under Russian power. Now, even though Putin did not deal with all the serious issues in Russia, he sparked a budget surplus and even a growing economy. He used the tactic of silencing critics in the media, which was looked down upon by Western Europe, to further centralize Russia and restore Russian pride and discipline in society. After Putin's reign ended, he should not and could not have run for re-election because it was against the Russian constitution. So Dmitry Medvedev set up in 2008 and bumped Putin down to prime minister. However, Putin was re-elected later on, even though it was against the Russian constitution. Now, he was protested against during this, but he was still re-elected. While this was all going on in Russia, there were other countries under communist rule that became unrest and unsatisfied. So these countries, such as Poland, Hungary, Romania, and Czechoslovakia, found that recreating their government was the best and fastest way to solve the issue, dealing with their citizens' discontent. Now, Poland was the first to agree to parliamentary elections, which was the first of its kind in Eastern Europe in over 40 years, and a newly elected Solidarity coalition was allowed to then form a new government, which ended up their communist rule in putting Lech Walesa as president. Hungary also established reforms to put an end to communism after dissatisfaction grew due to a falling economy, and new political parties called for Hungary to become a democratic government, which was launched in 1990. So all the countries I just named, they were able to find a peaceful way to get the type of government they wanted, except for Romania. They went through a violent revolutionary pathway where Nicolae Ceausescu, the dictator, rejected Gorbachev's reforms. He was successful in reducing Romania's debt. However, he did drastically drop the citizens' standards of living, sparking anger and a demonstration that was violently crushed in 1989, which led to other mass demonstrations. He was booed at a rally, so Nicolae and his wife were finally tried and actually executed, handing over the power to the National Salvation Front. Now, Czechs and Slovaks, what do they have in common? Absolutely nothing, it seems, but they're actually very similar. Czechoslovakia split into the Czech and Slovak, which is why they sound so similar. The two used to be joined, like I just said, but it began to shift toward a non-communist rule. It encountered old problems, especially over ethnic issues, where the Czechs and the Slavs were in disagreement over the organization of the new state, but they agreed to a peaceful division, thus resulting in this final split in 1993, which gave us what is now the Czech Republic. Now, the digital age, we should all be pretty familiar with this one, considering we are actually living into it. Many transformations and inventions change the way we think and communicate with others and obtaining information. Technological expansions stretch from the advent of the computer to cell phones to social networking sites. Companies like Apple and Microsoft have made their profit off the competition in the computer and tech industries as increased telecommunication abilities are developed and computer processing capabilities advance. Now, these drastic developments led to new eras in art and music with the invention of video games and fantasy and epic films such as Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings. This era also developed a sense of multiculturalism, which is created by global migrations and a diverse sense of artistic expression. Last but not least, in my opinion, the most general topic, globalization. Global awareness became prevalent in globalization, which is the process where nations become more interdependent, was forming a more global economy. This is where production, distribution, and sale of goods and services moved to a worldwide scale. This also led to formation of transnational corporations such as McDonald's, which are companies who have businesses in 2 or more countries. Global awareness also led to a more save the world approach to the environment, and the greenhouse effect and global warming, which we all know is fact, proven by scientists, where this Earth is slowly but steadily getting warmer. It became really prevalent in society. This is where we finally started to regulate and worry about pollution and finding better, safer, and cleaner alternatives to practically anything.